The powerful realization I had to get my time back. Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keels Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com. The powerful realization I had to get my time back is inspired for anyone who feels like when you have 100% of your day and you are putting 90% into what you're doing in your corporate role and you have this dream of building your own, and the only thing that you can do is give what is left of your energy, your time, your effort, your resources, and you feel like you need a way to break this cycle, this is what you want to listen to. This is going to be a very brief episode and it is going to give you a very specific way that you can follow a plan to break this cycle where you are giving every single thing that you have to someone else's dream, and you're giving what's left, which seems unfair because you're doing the work, to give it to your dream, your effort, your goals. Stick with me. I'm going to make this brief. And I'm actually going to even take you back to when I early on started figuring out that I wanted to do something for myself, because early on in my career, my professional career that lasted 26 years in the corporate world, in the very beginning, like I was making very small bets, small financial bets that didn't move the needle. What do I mean by that? Like, I remember that I wanted to be able to, my first role right out of college, I wanted to start to get from a point where I was having just enough money to get by to start to save money, which for me at the moment in time meant investing. Saving was investing because that's just how I grew up. So I wanted to move the needle. So I remember that I would buy stocks. I would buy 2 stocks here or 3 stocks there on the secondary market. Didn't even really know what I was doing. And I would follow these forever and up and down. And then many years later, 5 or 6 years later, I would sell these stocks. And I would realize that I went through all this emotional trauma to gain very little to none, especially when you consider taxes. But that's a whole different deal. But literally buying 2 to 5 stocks. I think the most I had ever bought was 10. And I overanalyzed business opportunities and I overanalyzed real estate opportunities. And after even overanalyzing all this stuff, I just didn't do a thing. And there was one main reason that I didn't actually take action at this early point in my career and life. It's because I wanted to keep my record perfect. I wanted to keep it perfect because I got everything right all the time. And I wanted to make the perfect decision every single time because it worked for me in school. Like, I just had to overstudy and then I get an A plus on the test, which meant everything was perfect. And I got into this loop, and that's what was happening. But I think as I realize now in life, I wanted to just make sure that I didn't make a mistake. I didn't want to make a mistake because I didn't get, like, that would be failure. I wouldn't have been able to understand that. But then as I talk to you and when you go through this brief episode with me, you're going to understand the powerful realization that I had, not only to get my time back, but to start to rectify some of these things that were happening in my mind. Because as I was doing things right, I got the good grades, I got the good job, and I was on the promotion track. It was all about working all day, all night, thinking all day, thinking all night to be able to overperform so that I could secure the single source of income, which was multiple 6 figures, much higher. Like, as I started getting more responsibility, family, and all these things, my single source of income, it became that thing that I had to protect more than anything else, especially because I grew up in a working class family. I was taught work harder, you work smarter, you have to outwork everybody else. And that single source of income for me was the lifeline. It was the benefit. It was the thing that I thought allowed me to do all of the things that I wanted to do for myself and for my family. And I protected it almost with my life. I was all in my corporate role because that was the thing that was providing me and my family the lifestyle that we wanted. And so every single effort that I had went there. And I actually started realizing, I got to a certain point that of the time that I had, like, my corporate life gave me, I gave 90% of that time that I had available for myself and in my own things to corporate. And anything that was left over, like, like, I don't know if maybe it was 10% of the energy that I had ready to go. Like, that little bit of energy went towards my building my own dream, and started realizing that I couldn't make the small bets. I'd have to start making bigger bets. But I only gave 10% of my energy, my effort, and 0% of my resources initially because I needed to protect the thing that was keeping me and my family in space. So I realized, though, that I could not continue to overthink things, because at this point in time, I'm living in Europe. I was speaking Spanish. I was speaking French. I was learning. I was already speaking Italian as well. And I started reflecting and I realized like I couldn't continue to overthink this, because the way that I started to become fluent in foreign languages was because I allowed myself to get outside of my comfort zone. I learned the grammar, I learned the theory, and then I had to put it into practice. And if that helped me in the languages and it helped me to be able to live overseas, because by this time I'm overseas, I'm living probably 15 years, 10, 15 years. I had to start to step outside of my comfort zone and do something else, because if not, I was going to have zero results to show for it. And I didn't want that for me or for my family. And that meant I'm going to have to start to do some things with the time. I can't just give, because I had this goal and this dream to build my own goal, my own dream. I needed to have the energy, the effort, the time to be able to dedicate to that. And just given what I had left over, it wasn't going to be enough. So what I decided to do was I decided to focus my energy, my time, and my effort as the first starting point. And I got to a point where I said, okay, I can't keep making small bets. I've got to make a quote unquote bigger bet. And I can't keep studying the theory. I've got to put it into practice. So one of the things for me, I had to figure out how much money was I willing to say, if I put it here, if I don't get a dime of it back, and even if I lose it all, that I'm okay with that. That was the second step. First was focus, time, effort, and energy and financial resources. Secondly, how much money was I going to put to the side that if I lost it all tomorrow, I would be okay with that. Secondly, I picked an asset, and I finally had studied so many different assets because I was watching podcasts and videos and all that stuff, but I decided it was single family residences. That was the thing that I was going to go for. And then I picked a date. I had to have this purchased by, it was the 1st of July of 2013. And then it was go time, right? That's the simplified version. It was focus, time, effort, and energy, decided how much money I wanted to put up. I picked an asset, single family residence I picked the date, and it was time to go. Now, of course, I was afraid to lose all the money. I didn't want to lose the money. I'd worked really hard for this money, really hard. And it was more money than I ever thought I would be able to just put into one particular asset. I was starting to play big. I was frustrated that it took so long. I was frustrated with myself. And so it made me a little bit hesitant in terms of being able to move forward. And once again, I didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want to be the one who didn't get it right. But I also realized that learning languages, it took me being outside of my comfort zone. And if I was going to start to get more of my time, meaning I was owning more of the control of the outputs of my life, I had to start redirecting my time, energy, and effort in different ways. And hold on with me, because you're going to understand the powerful realization that I had to get my time back. Because yes, I finally moved forward. And yes, after 4.5, almost 5 years of studying the theory, I finally made my first big purchase. Now, when I made the purchase and it wasn't number one, I had the North Star was the single family residences. Spoiler alert, wasn't even a single family residence. It was a different type of asset, a duplex. And it wasn't perfect, but it was done. Finally got there. Finally got beyond the theory 4.5 years later. I don't want that for you. But more importantly, and here's what I want to share with you, is I realized that I had all of this energy, and I was just giving what was left over to myself. I spent the vast majority, over 90% of my time, effort, and energy giving it to my corporate life and the things that I wanted to do. Right? I'm not talking about the family stuff. That's completely separate. What I want you to understand is I made this choice for the time, effort, and energy for myself and my goals, and I dedicated 90% of it, roughly speaking, to my corporate life, to the goals and dreams of the single source of income that I had. And I gave 10% to myself. And I was way overachieving in my corporate role, way overachieving. Got up to 326% one of the years. So the thing that I started to realize, and this is why I'm sharing it with you, is that in order to get to 100% of the objectives that the companies that I worked for, I didn't have to continue to give 200% of my time, effort, and energy, or 90% of what I had for myself to the corporate goal because I was already well overachieving. That's the point. That's the realization. I didn't have to continue to give so much of my time, effort, and energy because I was already a high achiever. I was already going beyond what was necessary. And so what I understood is that it didn't require all of that time that I was giving. I could still overachieve in my corporate goals and even start to have some of that excess time go from not just giving what was left over. I could start to actually use some of that high powered energy on building my own goal, getting to more of a level of independence. And when I got to that independence, guess what? It made me an even better individual contributor, leader in my corporate role. It helped me to feel much more fulfilled, much more in control, because I was actually starting to understand the realization that I had to be able to get back some of my time, reallocate the energy, effort, and then even financial resources to help build my dream, which gave me more energy, more confidence, and it made me better outside of the office and inside of the office with the time that I had dedicated. That's what I want for you. I want you to understand the powerful realization that I had to get my time back is that I didn't have to continue to give all of it to the corporate role. I could give a lot and still overperform because that's what we do as high achievers. That's why you're listening. Give yourself the grace. It's okay. You're still going to overperform. Just give yourself a little bit more time, a little more energy, a little more effort. Dedicate more financial resources because betting on yourself is the best bet that you can make. And I use air quotes on that, especially if we're watching the video version. So listen, if it's not you, you know somebody who's going through this struggle. They're building somebody else's dream. They're just giving a little bit left to build their own dream, and it's taking forever. They're frustrated. They're not living their best life. Today, you have the opportunity to change that for them. Take a moment, share today's episode, share it, follow up with them, talk about it, go from theory to practice. And while you're doing that, guess where I'll be? I'll be right here. Yes, I will be preparing for the next episode. So until then, I want you to go out and make it a great day. And thank you very, very, very much. Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keels Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.